हेलो।
वीडियो ऑन करो, मैं इंट्रोडक्शन करा दूं। ज्वाइन करिए।
Glad to be here.
Ashok ji has joined from Ahmedabad. Ashok ji, namaskar.
Namaskar to everyone.
चलेगा
Namaste.
चलेगा संजय जी என்ன பண்ணோம் நான் என்ன பண்ணோம் அந்த மீட்டிங் எப்போ முடியும்
Naveen ji, I will check with Chitra ji.
வேற ஒரு மீட்டிங் போயிட்டு இருக்கா
Raviji,
He looks like on a call.
தெரியலையே இப்போ என்ன பண்ணோம்
Ravi Anna, namaskaram.
நமஸ்காரம் we have Sundar from Muscat and has Chitra ji joined from Hong Kong.
Ravi ji, I just called Chitra ji. She is joining in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Richard ji has joined. Richard ji,
Namaskar.
Yeah.
namaste. Narendran here. Narayana, namaskaram.
What about Ashish?
Mr. Richard has joined. I just said. Chitra ji, vandachanna.
Okay. What about Ashish Shankar? AS is there. No, that is Avinash Shakti. So Ashish Shankar.
Ashish ji will join at 4:40, before 10 minutes before his dialect.
I see. Mahavir.
Yeah.
Richard ji, can you?
Yeah, tell me.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Narendran. Namaste. Good to see you, sir.
Mr. Dinesh Jain from Barodara has joined. He is also having experience of 30 years and is a close associate with us from Barodara.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. Dinesh ji. Richard's video is not seen.
Video you can't see?
I can see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see actually.
Are you able to see Richard?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, he's there. Yeah,
Okay.
he's there.
Can you see?
Raviji
Can
is
you
there.
now see? Oh, no. I'll put it off and on otherwise.
No, I think Mr. Richard, everybody else can see. I think there must be something wrong with
Ravi Kumar.
Raviji's connection. Raviji, आप देख पा रहे हो?
I can see few faces, but Richard is not seen. There's some
Probably you can pin down so that see.
some yellow mark is there. Due to
I
low
think
bandwidth,
he's.
No, Ravi ji, there are 2 accounts for Richard ji, some reason.
Okay.
You can see another is with the yellow mark.
One is with a yellow mark, the other is normal. Where is it? Let me see. If he says a word, then he may come on.
So, yeah,
I
I'm
can see
seeing
his
now.
face. Yes, sir. I can see you now.
Okay, chalo, good.
Okay, you have joined with 2. I was looking at the
Okay,
other.
so should I log out and log in again or what?
No, I think it's fine. So
I
think it's
introduce,
fine, very fine.
introduce Mr. Ritesh Ketan. He is my son-in-law. He's CA and CFA, and he is working with Hong Kong-based merchant banking firm Haitong International. He is based at Mumbai. Ritesh Ketan.
Welcome, sir. Really appreciate your coming here. Richard ji, quickly, I think you spoke with Raviji. So,
Yeah.
Raviji, you can say hello to Richard.
Yeah.
Kodu, you've spoken to. So,
Yes, yeah. I've
you can
spoken.
see Kodu. I think
Yes.
Chirag Trivedi you must have spoken to.
Yes.
And we have Bafna ji, Subhash Bafna ji. You can say, just say,
Hello, sir.
yes.
Hello. How are you?
He's a large chartered accounting firm based out of Jaipur, Delhi, and Mumbai.
Okay.
And he also works with us and does a lot of work in the economic area for
Okay.
Atmanirbhar Bharat initiatives.
Okay. Sure.
So, so I think just in 2-3 minutes we'll start. We're getting people from various.
Gauri Shankar has come.
Gauri Shankar.
I think he's not there. Ambiyana Namaskaram.
Ambi has
Shankar.
joined
Yeah, Ambiyana untar.
Ambiji is from
Bahrain.
Oman. Ambiji, namaste.
Ambiji, namaste.
Has Chitra ji come?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yes, come. She's there.
Chitra ji,
Okay.
can you...
So it is 403. It's 403. We'll start in 1 minute from now. 404. Raviji?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Chitra ji, please take over at 404.
He has started.
Okay. Video coming.
Yeah, coming.
Damji, namaste. Good to see you on video.
I think it's 404. Chitra ji, please.
Yes. So my video is on, right? It's coming or not?
Video just.
See.
No, we're not able to see your video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
now it's on.
okay.
Now it's on.
It's okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So namaste to everyone. Today we are here for a very important session, which will be very useful to so and for improving India's progress also. So this summit is the financial questions for Asian. And we'll be an interesting online session on Indian capital market and emerging perspective. And this discussion will also include ways in which NRI can invest. And we have great speakers around here. And I'll now invite Mr. Raviji to give a welcome speech. It's on to you, Raviji. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome all of you. We in Pride of Bharat are made for goodness. We strive to make the world a better place to live and love. We want to tell the world that there are no outsiders. All are welcome in our program. I welcome all of you heartily. We welcome changes. We look for opportunities. We welcome challenges and look for opportunities. We learn and grow in wisdom. Challenges and struggles are exactly what we need in our lives. We welcome every effort, every struggle, and every challenge. And I'm happy to welcome Richard Rekhy of KPMG and Ashish Shankar of Motilal Oswal. We also have many VIPs who will be soon joining from Hong Kong, from Gulf countries, from Europe, Africa, Australia, America. Gauri Shankar from United Nations, Mahesh Mahadevan from United Nations, Anand Tiwari, they all will be joining. When it comes to finance, many strange things happen. in the year 1990, India had no foreign exchange. So the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Chandrasekhar, had to mortgage 23 tons of gold in the Bank of England. But within 10 years, India from a borrowing country became a lending country. India had surplus of foreign exchange. And how it happened? To cut short, two important points. First, it was Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister, and then it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee as Prime Minister. In 2010 years, we were from being one of the poorest countries, we were compared with USA and China. The world was saying there are three powers, USA and China, and slowly India is emerging. So in the last 70 years, India has managed its poor Dalits and tribals far better than what they have managed in USA with the blacks and the Native Americans. We have managed better the rural and the urban than what China has done with the rural and urban. So for this, the credit should go to the government, legislators, policymakers, bureaucrats, and more thousands and thousands of selfless, non-governmental organizations and social workers. So India has now the yawning gap in China and USA offers an opportunity for India to the yawning gap between the rich and the poor in other countries gives an opportunity for India to tell that we can grow in a sustained way, maintaining democracy. All riches have their origin in their mind of people. Wealth is in idea and not in money. Ideas created WhatsApp, ideas have created Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Uber, and Flipkart. Elon Musk, Tesla of Tesla, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook became rich because they came with new innovations. Now, where does India stand? The statistics in 2020 and 2021 say that India produced maximum number of unicorns, overtaking USA and China. In 10 years' time, India will have maximum number of unicorns, and that is a good sign. Our homegrown, soon we'll be seeing our homegrown Sundar Pichais and Satya Nadellas. So we'll be leading the world in science and technology. About Pride of Bharat, we have invited in the last 1 year several VIPs from around the world. The director of NASA, Dr. Charles Bolden, Chairman of ISRO, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Chairman of DRDO, Dr. Satish Reddy, then Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, Professor Vijay Raghavan, American scientist Dr. Raj Vedam, Oscar Award winner for technology Vikas Sathe from Australia. They have addressed our programs. Similarly, we have been having close links with officials in the United Nations, with US senators, MPs in Europe, presidents and prime ministers of a few countries. In fact, the Vice President of America, Kamala Harris, she donated $2 million worth of medical kits during Corona after having conversations with our members. Extraordinary Indians we have been able to meet during this Corona period. Karthik Jayaraman, his Way Cool organization, he is enabling 100,000, 1 crore poor farmers and small restaurant owners. And even though he is paying 10% more money to their products and buying from them, still he is able to make profit. Dr. Prasad Devgar has enabled 9,000 villages in Maharashtra to have biogas plants. Mohan Rao Ghaisas has helped 9,000 tribal villages to stand on their feet. Ram Kumar Mishra is enabling 2,000 farmers in Uttar Pradesh. And there are some extraordinary, brilliant brains whom we are trying to help and take their products around the world. For example, one of our friend Manish Raval has come with a mask, a protective device that is antibacterial, antivirus, and antifungus. And Kodadar from France is trying to help him take it international level. Similarly, a young boy from IIT has come with a 3D printer, a machine that can produce a very well designed house within 7 days. Then in agriculture, Dr. Nagaraj of Bangalore can make agricultural waste, convert them into fertilizers within 3 minutes. Similarly, Mahendra Kabra has come with a new innovation called Li-Fi that will be very useful around the world. So we completed 70 weeks of management classes. Every week we have been talking about ancient Indian management and its relevance to today's management world. So then under Tamil genius, Telugu genius, Kannada genius, Gujarati genius, Utkal genius, Marathi genius, we are running classes on unsung heroes and unknown historical facts. That is in similarly. Now coming to wealth, you want to be rich, you want Goddess Lakshmi to smile on you and stay with you, then just remember a few points. Be enthusiastic, hardworking, keep away from bad habits, be brave, grateful, and consistent. GDP of Bombay is $400 billion. It is more than the GDP of Pakistan. Australian Prime Minister once said, and I have been living in Australia for the last 20 years, he said, if you want your money to be safe, you must invest in Bombay Stock Exchange. Now, there are 6 laws of wealth. Let me just say quickly. Save at least 10% of your income. Invest your savings so that it will multiply. Avoid debt. The poor pay interest and the rich earn interest. Don't speculate in get rich quick schemes. Invest in solid businesses. We know what happened to Satyam. Though the name was Satyam, the practice was not Satyam. Then Sahara became Be-Sahara. And even with the name Modi, police are chasing Nirav. And invest by yourself. Gain knowledge on investment and then invest yourself. Develop the skills required to make your earnings powerful. Safeguard your fortune with the diversification in insurance. Now, suggestion for youth, because many youth have joined through YouTube. Never take a day off in your 20s. Vision without ability to execute it is hallucination. A correct decision taken late is also wrong. Data is more important than emotions. Be guided by data. Great ideas often receive violent opposition, but please carry on. Leaders think and talk about solutions. Followers think and talk about problems. So be a leader. Finally, in the stock market, there is something that I have never understood. Today's program will make me wonder. Every time one guy sells, another one buys, and both of them think that they are smart. Thanks a lot. Welcome to a very exciting, engaging event. And over to Chitra madam.
Just 30 seconds before Chitraji takes over. So we just formal program has just started. We have 84 participants from 9 countries, and YouTube we have people from all over the world. So we have covered about 14 countries. So please go ahead.
Wow, it's a great start, Raviji, and you have given the direction where India goes and what Pride of Bharat is doing. So many activities. I hope this session also will be very, very useful to everyone who is attending it. And now we will go to the next session where we'll be having a quotation of Chanakya and Tiruvalluvar by Ms. Pearl Uttam Singh from Egypt. So on to you, Ms. Pearl.
Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Namaste, everyone. So, as we look into our past for guidance of our future, I would like to narrate 3 quotes from ancient sages like Chanakya ji and Saint Taruvalla ji, like ma'am said. Firstly, all despise the poor and all praise the rich. Wealth can change people of no importance into those of some importance. Hence, earn wealth with 1,000 hands and distribute it to the needy with 2,000 hands. Secondly, governments should encourage wealth which flows with mercy and love. And thirdly, Accumulate wealth. It will destroy the arrogance of your enemies. There is no weapon sharper than it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pearl. And I'll add to one more quotation with that one. When money realizes that it is in good hands, it wants to stay and multiple in those hands. So now we are here to multiply our money through investments in India and world over. Now we'll be inviting the chief speaker, Shri Richard Rekhy, and he will be introduced by Shri Godard Moradian from France. On to you, sir. Godard, sir.
Good day, everyone. I am so delighted to introduce to you Mr. Richard Rekhy, the former CEO of KPMG India and member of the global board. But I'm not going to waste my time telling to you about his background, which most of you already know or have Googled and found out and on the social media. But I'm going to spend some time telling you about the other side of Mr. Rekhy. And if you don't mind, occasionally I'll say directly Richard because I consider him so close, like I can address him as Richard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll tell you 3 things about him, which you will not find in any Google or social media. The first is he loves animals, especially dogs. He has got 4 dogs, 3 of which he has adopted. He just loves dogs. He sees a dog in trouble or whatever, if somebody's abandoning, he just picks them up. Now that shows the soft side of Mr. Richard. The second, he has a very hectic life. In spite of being busy in the professional world, he's very active in sports. And in sports, he loves swimming, cricket, and hiking. But he has also got a lot of hobbies. He loves music. He loves to travel to different countries, especially new countries, to understand the cultures, and he loves to try out the cuisine. Now that is where I also have a similar thing. When it comes to food, who doesn't like to do that? The third very important part of him, which a lot of you would not know, but there's a lot we can learn from him. He is a person who doesn't give up under difficulties. When he was young, there was maybe because of corporate politics or whatever, he was overlooked and somebody else became a partner in his firm. He was not promoted. Now there was competition were knocking at his door, giving him offers to be a partner with them. But he decided to say he didn't want to cry, he didn't complain. He just stayed there for 2 more years. And afterwards, he finally became partner. But he made up for 5 years so that when he joined, even though he became partner after 2 years, his seniority was of partners who were there 5 years before him. And it is interesting that what he says that clearly shows that he doesn't give up. And if you see his WhatsApp display picture, it says this, and I'll read out. I don't know how my story will end, but nowhere in my text will it ever read,
Kodu, you're on mute.
when did it become mute?
When you're reading the WhatsApp profile.
Did I finish the WhatsApp reading? No.
No, you can do the WhatsApp profile again.
The WhatsApp thing says, I don't know how my story will end, but nowhere in my text will it ever read, I gave up. That shows what kind of gentleman he is. There's a lot we can learn from him. We are looking forward, Richard, from some enlightenment speech from you. And we would be delighted to hear your knowledge, your experience, and your vision. Over to you, Richard.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for that generous introduction. Time somebody is given such an introduction, normally they read from some information which you send across the standard. So I really appreciate it. And I thank all the organizers for inviting me. I think to be amongst the intelligentsia of India and amongst all you learned people, I'm feeling very humbled. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from you all. It is not the other way around. And the point is that besides being a chartered accountant and working with the consulting firms for the last 39 years, 38, this is going to be my 39th year now. And I only know one area, and that is consulting. I've done nothing else. And Ravi ji, I think you set the tone very well with your opening remarks. I think for me, the pride of the nation, I never knew such an organization existed, honestly. But for me, it has always been for the pride of the country to do something for this country, which in my small way, in which I can contribute. And right through my professional career, wherever I got the opportunity, I've done it. Whether it is the ease of doing business, or whether it's the investment promotions around the country. We have taken delegations. I know right from the time in Arthur Andersen, when the first delegation was taken from Maharashtra, and the doors were opened, and then Karnataka, and then of course now every state is doing it. One has been involved in almost all state promotion, this thing. Secondly, the idea of doing the state ranking, one was very much involved in that, ease of doing business. So there has been a lot of contribution in that sense. And I think a lot of the programs that the current government has launched, we were in some way or the other involved in some of them. I just thought as a background, let me put this in context of where I come from. The most I've been observing this economy, and now when one sits from where I am, because now I do spend some amount of my time in Dubai, in the Middle East, seeing that market, and you get a very global perspective sitting there. And also when being on the KPMG global board for 5 years, one saw all the multinational large corporations, the way they operate, and the kind of impact they're having on the globe, on everybody else. But this COVID came along and caused a huge amount of devastation. And it not only caused physical and economic devastation, but it also had huge social implications. And we have seen the social implications where the rich became richer and the poor became poorer. And I think that's one big issue and gap that needs to get addressed. I think that's the one big problem the world is facing. Not India. It's a global phenomenon which the world is facing. It did a lot of damage. Infrastructure, digital infrastructure, things like supply chain, financial services, IT systems, cybersecurities were all broken. We all thought we had very good supply chains. We all had very good cybersecurity, but the COVID proved that this was not true. And all these got broken. And there was huge negative impact on many brands. I do not know how many of you all have been following. Global brands suddenly disappeared. And they just collapsed. I mean, it was amazing how in a matter of 2 or 3 months, so many global brands collapsed. It just shows that there was no solidity behind those brands. They were there, and the COVID only exposed it. So the COVID has also created a huge pressure on the fiscal thing of many countries. In some countries, even higher. India, at least, has tried to work on the fiscal area. And we are also competing in investment priorities today. There are huge priorities which are there. So one side, COVID, you need to deal with the COVID issue. On the other side, you have competing to be done. And when we talk of climate change, which is a further impact for the countries like India, which is a developing country, which, the Western countries, when they developed, there was nothing known as climate change. They just developed. Now, when countries like India are developing, climate change has become a big area. ESG, as you know, is in every corporate boardroom, it's being discussed. So we have that challenge of how we're going to deal with that investments in climate change, in ESG, as we still chart out our own growths. And also we need to see India's big challenge has always been infrastructure. And infrastructure funding has been a big issue in India. Because if you look at all these great infrastructures that have been built, whether it's airports, whether it is roads, whether it is bridges, etc., ports, and yet we find all these infrastructure companies sick. And then you ask, how can it be when you build such good infrastructure, how can all these companies be sick? The reason they are sick because we did not have an infrastructure development fund. And if we had an infrastructure development fund, the way you fund long-term infrastructure is very different from the way your banks fund corporates, where you put the money in, because by the time you ask for the return of the money, it goes away. So I think so that is one big challenge we have. And I'm just going to put few of the challenges. I'm going to put some of my ideas, and we can do in the Q&A after that, how you want to take the questions. I think Raviji already spoke about the 30 years back or 31 years back when India economy opened up. And I think that created a huge amount of momentum. And it also showed one more thing, that while the Asian tigers in that time in 1998, they all collapsed, Indian economy stood out strong. And it also proved the kind of economic policies we had. And also of late, we have seen the great digital empowerment that has happened in India. And just to share with you, in case you do not know the statistics, India today has the largest number of digital payments in the world, largest number. We had recorded 25.5 billion transactions. China records 15.5 billion transactions. So just to put it in context, because we always keep comparing ourselves with China, it's not always a great comparison we should do, but I just thought two large economies to show it. And one thought which came into my mind as I was looking at these great digital payments, even we put like a 0.0001%, like a transaction tax on these payments, you can just imagine the fund we could build to fund all this infrastructure and all that we want. I mean, there is a huge opportunity for the government to look at, and it could be particular types of transaction. I'm not going to, I mean, people say, why do we want to charge this thing? But there could, we are looking for resources. We need to look at resources beyond tax. We need to look at resources which the country can well afford to put. And when you put a very small transaction fee, if somebody starts taking 1 rupee or 5 rupees out of your bank account, you won't even know about it. So if small amounts go, and when you take the number of transactions I'm talking about, we are talking of huge amount of money that is getting, and I would call it secured insurance, kind of money which could be used for the betterment of this country. So in times of crisis, India's greatest challenge actually is the availability of capital. And we have to admit this. India has a huge challenge around capital. And whatever money is there is available only in a few hands, in a few corporates, and it's dry to the small and medium sector. And if you see the small and medium sector industry, it is suffering today. They don't have funding. The biggest challenge is money, and I think we need to look and say, how do we actually get it? So in times of crisis, three kinds of capital must come together to drive innovation. When we're talking of innovation here, right, we're talking of how are we going to innovate in the capital market, in financing. So one is intellectual capital, the other one is human capital, and the third is financial capital. I'm not talking of the two first, intellectual and human capital. Today we are discussing is financial innovation. And when these three come together, that can actually deal with the crisis kind of situation that we are going through today, the world is going through. Financial innovation has become very important to enhance our revenues, which has become a great issue. Monetary policies need to keep abreast with what is happening in the technology space and how digitization is changing the way we interface and interact. I mean, just see today, the way we are doing this call today. I mean, you're connected all over the world. I mean, all these facilities were available, but they were never used the way they are being used today. The way people are working, digital platforms are changing the relationship between customers, workers, employers. In almost everything we do, culture is becoming a big issue. So how do you interact with your customers, suppliers, when you don't see them and you're just interacting with them digitally? And the computing power is going up tremendously. Just imagine the phone which you have in your hand is more powerful than the computer which sent the first rocket to the moon. I mean, that's the power of computing that you have in your hand today. And it's so powerful. It's getting more and more powerful as time goes on. And so we need to think very carefully as we bring these payment systems in line with what is happening today. And we should exploit the digital revolution that is in front of us. And for that, We need to open up the economy much more than what it is. I'll come to a few of the points a little later. And we have to minimize the job dislocation that is happening today. Today, India is having a challenge of jobs and a job dislocation. So we have to see how we can minimize that to the greater extent. At the same time, we need to maintain financial stability of this sector. As we have gone through, the world went through 2008, 2009 financial crisis, and India got a little later, about 2010, 2011, it impacted India. All the Western world has actually reformed their banks. Unfortunately, India did not go for the banking reforms the way they should have gone through. They did not clean up the balance sheets. And I think this is something that needs to be looked at. We also need to incur reforms in the non-banking financial sector. We need to deepen the capital markets. I'll give some points as to how we can deepen the capital markets. And we have to enhance the role of Fintech. So that we can actually, where we bring the public sector banks and bring the public sector financial system in line with the modern ways in which financing banks need to run. So this would amount to a huge, one of the growths, I remember one of the quotes which John F. Kennedy gave when he became president, and he was investing a lot of money in building roads. And this is what Nitin Gadkari is doing today in India, where he's actually doing, and I will come to a few of the things that he's done, which are remarkable actually. When they asked him, why are you investing so much in roads? He's saying, because these roads will make money for us. And I think if we have world-class infrastructure, it will help in many things in our supply chain, which is today, India is one of the most countries, which is one of the most costly when it comes to logistics, to move goods from one place to another in terms of time, in terms of money. And so these are things which need to get, so we need a huge amount of investment in there. But all this investment in long-term infrastructure hinges on availability of capital. And I said, India has a huge deficit in capital. So one has to find out some very new and newly imagined ways in which we can work out this capital. And one of the ways I think is, which I want to put out here, is this public-private partnership and asset recycling. So this this public-private partnership needs to actually get a life of its own. It needs to change. It needs to become much more, which needs to become much more robust than what it is. The policies need to be relooked at to look at the modern ways in which public-private partnership needs to run. And this recycling of assets is a very, very good idea, where the government has invested in the assets. They've already put in the money there. They are not being monetized in a proper way. You give it to the private sector, which is much more efficient in monetizing it. So what has happened? The investments have already gone in. Now you need to monetize that. And this is for the greater good of the country. So asset monetization is very different from privatization or a slum sale, because the asset still is in the hand of the government and it is being used. So I would say the driver for asset monetization is beyond its fiscal impact. It is not just funding mechanism, it is also overall paradigm shift in infrastructure operations. The mindset, the thinking of how these assets are going to be built and how they're going to be run and how are they going to be maintained going forward will be very important. And if you look at the India's ambition is about 1,111,000 crores of investment between 2019 and 25 into infrastructure. Now, this is a large amount of money if you look at it, out of which 21% is expected from the private sector. And if you look at the private sector, they are quite dried up when it comes to capital, large capital. They don't have the money to put it in at the moment. So one will have to see how you can fund it. And I would like to give the example of what the National Highway Authority of India, and I was talking of the Minister, Mr. Gadkari, where he has actually given out 75 operational road projects have been bid under the toll operate transfer mode, for which the government has recovered huge amounts of money, because the private sector, and these are all, many of them are foreign companies who have come in and bid for these toll roads on which they are getting revenue. And they have put in a huge amount. I know Macquarie did one toll on which they paid $2 billion for that entire concession. And I think these kind of new innovative ways of funding will have to be found out, because this is what you call asset monetization, where you've got an asset, you've invested in it, and now you're getting the money out of it upfront and then using it later. And the own operations are being given out to the private sector. They give it out as long as 25 to 30 years to monitor, for them to make up the money which they have given to the government. So this is one way of looking at it, which we are already doing on the roads. We have to do it for other assets as we go along. Some announcements were made, but we have to see how efficiently they are actually put together out here. The point is not about making announcement. The point is about execution on those projects which are there. So the other one, which is about deepening, widening, and heightening the economic activity, which India is. It's about when we go deep, I will talk about the deepening part of it as to why I use that word. And we have to widen our economic activities, and also we have to improve the velocity of it. And the second is related to productivity by formalizing the digital economy. And I will come to this point on the formalizing of the digital economy as to what I'm trying to say on this point, and just in the next 5-10 minutes. So there is need to deepen the financial markets with easier availability of capital and greater use of strategy. India at 75 is in a very strong position today, and we have to see how we can channelize the savings by putting money in, lending money, and avoid the NPAs that were created in the past. And I think that is a very, very important area which one has to look at. You lend money and you have to see it. When we talk of deepening the capital markets, we're talking of the bond market. India does not have a very vibrant bond market. And I think we need to take out a bond market which is vibrant. We can learn from the UK and the US as to how their bond markets function, and we can make our capital markets much more this thing than what it is. And so we need to liberalize in these areas much more. I know there were some committees put up, but they never actually reached a level. When Mr. Arun Jaitley was there, he tried to do some of this, but I think we need to really work on it. The second one is on ease of doing business. I know, like I told you, we did a lot of work on ease of doing business, but we have to move away from the World Bank rankings. You know, World Bank ranking is just one set of, right? They have 10 criteria which they look at. Let's forget about those. Because you go to a businessman and talk to him, he'll say, yeah, forget about all this. You know, when I have to put up a business, it creates a huge amount of problems. We have to look at the real problems that business people face. And we have to make it so easy for people to do business. I know, Raviji, you said about the next Sundar Pichai and all Satya Nadellas, and maybe Elon Musk will come out of India. But we have to give them that environment in which they can come. You know, my personal view, in the current regulatory environment in which we live, I'm not sure an Apple can be born in India. I'm not sure. This is my view. This is my personal view. Because just imagine a Steve Jobs sitting in India, going to all the regulators, trying to explain as to why he closed down his companies instead of concentrating on the business. And today, if you look at Apple, it's a $3 trillion company. One company, $3 trillion. I mean, amazing, you know, what they have done. I think we need to leave the businessmen alone. We need to let them run their business, create the capital. And also, one very important point I want to put here, we should not follow the West. Because they are a different hierarchy, they're a different trajectory in their history. We are a very different trajectory. We need to build capital. Now, you know, you keep hearing this threats. Oh, we're going to bring in inheritance tax. I think we should stop all this. You know, this is completely waste of time, waste of energy. India is not ready for inheritance tax at the moment. We have to encourage people to build capital. We need to make people much more, and this wealth needs to get spread to many more people. So I think we need to look at policies which are fit for a country, for our culture, for the value system under which we live, and we should just not ape. We can look at some of the things happening in the West, but we should not ape it. That's my view. We need to create a digital infrastructure fund. In fact, I remember I had gone that time, Venkaiah Naidu used to be the infrastructure minister, and I told him, why don't you put up an infrastructure fund? And he liked the idea, and I showed him China also has it. And so you know, so they are willing to look at some ideas, and I think we should get this infrastructure fund up, because the huge amount of investment required. And the reason I'm saying the funding for infrastructure is very different from funding for a normal corporate. So this long-term funding returns, because all infrastructure companies earn their money after 15 years. And then they have a huge area which they keep earning. And so we should have the return of capital also happening in the similar way. So we need a developmental banks, and we need to build up a digital infrastructure, which is today, actually India has a very good advantage because we moved to the digital economy. In a digital economy, everybody is equal. You cannot say somebody is more advanced than you. Now it's for you to take whichever country will actually go and adopt the new technology and will use it to its good, will be the country which will actually benefit. The other one is fintech. We should see how the fintech can be absorbed into the current banking system. I remember I was sitting on a panel once with these new banks on one side and old banks on the other side. And the new bank was, old banks were saying, how are we going to pay for our infrastructure? And I thought to myself, well, this is a new world. You'll have to think about who will pay for this infrastructure, because technology is now overtaken banking. And if you look at all these sectors which are there, all these e-commerce companies, all these new banks, are they banks? Are they e-commerce companies? Are they logistics companies? What are they? Are they technology companies? So the whole world has changed quite a lot. And technology has become very pervasive in our own lives. In fact, in our own profession in the consulting, I remember we were once discussing at the KPMG global board, will Google one day become an auditor? And will they take over the profession, and will they start doing the audit? Because they have so much data available with them, they can actually go ahead and do a lot of this work. So I think everything is changing, everything is at risk, and we need to be a little bit more this thing in how we change ourselves. So when I come to the banking sector, banks will have to accelerate their digitization. There'll have to be a lot of restructuring of the sector. And they have to deal with the crisis, which will also further enhance. You see, the crisis we are going through, there will be further people defaulting on their loans. So one will have to see all the reliefs that have been given, or all the, Reserve Bank or the central bankers now saying, okay, we can just work on it a little differently. So banks will need to look at a few things. One is promote digital payments. Digital lending and credit will need to be enhanced out here. Using mobile phone and online will be very, very important as we go on. Peer-to-peer lending is already started, and banks will need to see how they can be part of this. And also e-commerce lending. You've seen a lot of e-commerce actually doing lending to their small suppliers, and they are creating their own network of lenders. And online lending by banks, and of course mobile banking, which is going to be very important. Access to digital banking, targeting the financial literacy of the people. I think, the problem with the Jan Dhan bank accounts have all been opened. They now need to be made part of the mainstream. They need to be made online, number one, which they are not. They need to be made online. And number two, all the debit cards which have been issued to these, they should be allowed as payments. They're not allowed at the moment. So they should be allowed as payments, because they need to come into that payment system, because you've created so many Jan Dhan accounts. But if they are all out of the payment system, you're getting a whole lot of people who are not part of the financial services. So, and we need to look at how do we build the bank of the future, and how do we build the best technologies, the best kind of systems that are available. And nobody's building it. Nobody's built it. So India can be the ones to build it. Everybody's talking about it, but India can be the first country which can actually build it out. And how do you bring greater collaboration between fintech and traditional banks? I think this is going to be very, very important. And how do we use blockchain? I can tell you one thing, the blockchain is very, very important when we talk of banking transactions. If there are any banking professionals here, they can, happy to debate on it. And how do we actually look at some of these KYC things which we all go through? We can have a centralized KYC. We don't need to go on every transaction, there should be a centralized KYC. You look at the efficiency you build. And every time the bank, anybody asks for a case, they can be charged for it. So there is a one time of KYC being done for all citizens, and that can be used. So we need to bring efficiency in and not create too much of paperwork and hurdles. I'll give you a very simple example. When you come back to India, there are 3 or 4 forms that have to be stamped by 4 or 5 people when you leave the plane. As you're getting out of the airport, whether you're vaccinated, whether you're whatever. You go into Dubai, there's nothing. They just sit there, you do your RTPC and you're out of the thing. So I think somewhere along the line, we need to build efficiency in. If somebody's checked your vaccination certificate, 10 people don't need to see it. So I'm just giving one simple example out there. We need to bring more efficiency and trust into the system. And, we need to see how we can fund R&D. Raviji, you spoke about when we want to build an innovative country, we have to do a lot more investment in R&D. We are not doing that investment in R&D. And if, like I'm saying, if venture capital is about turning ideas into money, I think R&D may be viewed as converting money into ideas. So we need to see how we can use this money to create new ideas for the country on which we can grow. There needs to be new efforts made for generation of credit insurance and investment in the rural areas. I mean, insurance also can undergo a huge amount of change, and one should look at it and see how one can do it. People had a lot of job losses. Can we create insurance policy for job losses? I remember I'd gone to China before the COVID period, and there was an online insurance company which had just got formed 3 years back. And we asked them, how many customers you have? They said 430 million customers. And each person has an average of 12 policies. So we said 12 policies, what kind of policies are these? They say, no, they insure even if their plane is getting late. So they put an insurance that this flight will be delayed, and on that, so they are better, they wait, So I'm just trying to say, and they do the settlement within 72 hours. So if the plane is not delayed, or the plane is delayed, that guy gets his money within 72 hours. So I'm not saying we should use it for this purpose, but my point is, how can we use digital to actually increase the reach? And we have got a great system here. We have got this entire post office system. How do we use that network of post office to actually reach the last mile? And how can we digitize that whole platform, reach all financial services products through that system to the last? Because India is so widespread. It's the postman who knows the last house or who knows that last individual. How do we use the existing system and digitize it and make it more efficient? And we need to encourage all the high net worth individuals in the creation of wealth creation as they go around creating the wealth. I know, Raviji, you spoke about the startup ecosystem in India, where you said we have the largest icons. No dispute on that. We have the largest unicorn, sorry. We have taken out the largest number of unicorns. We struggled to get even one unicorn about 4 or 5 years back. And today we have the largest number of unicorns, like you rightly said. And I've been told, as per statistics, we will have 150 to 200 unicorns. I don't remember the exact date, but it's not 4 or 5 years from now. I think we'll have those many unicorns. But I think the startup ecosystem needs a lot of strengthening. It needs two things. Number one, the unicorns are the ones who got funded, and that's why they reach where they reached. But what about the millions who don't get funded, the people who don't get their money on time, whose ideas are not? And I've noticed, because I've been involved in the startup ecosystem, I've been noticing they have two problems. One is the ability to scale up, and the secondly is the ability to get money on time. You have a great idea. If you're not funded, somebody else will get funded, and that person will run away with success and you will be left out. So I think it's important that you get funded on time. There needs to be a good mentoring system. We need to create a way in which a lot of these common services and facilities are provided to these to the startup community, in terms of good mentors, good board advisors, good back office support, good R&D, good HR practices, because they can't afford to hire the best. So how can we provide these common facilities to them? And because the way India will deal with this job problem is entrepreneurship. And the way we can get entrepreneurship, if we can make them successful, so that the entrepreneurs can go and build up their own, take the new ideas and build them up. And we can have much more than the second big problem that we have on the startup side is the paucity of local capital. In the US invests more than 135 billion annually on its startups. China invests about 65 billion. India invests only about 10 billion. And out of this, 60% in China and US comes out of local capital. In India, 90% comes out of international capital. So while we have a lot of these unicorns, which you spoke about, many of them are housed out of India and they are funded outside India. So when these unicorns do get sold, the money is not coming into the country. They're getting sold outside and those people are making the money. So I think we need to now localize a lot of this and ensure that, here we have, India needs about 150 to 200 billion of capital by 2025 needs to come into the startup community. And I think that's something that we need to look at, and that's where we can use the NRIs and the Indians who are outside as to how they could help and support or maybe generate that interest. And we are sitting at that point of history where the whole world is in distrust of China after what happened with COVID. And is this the time for us to take advantage of the situation and actually create India as that digital world which everybody wants to come to, or that destination where everybody wants to come and invest in, and all foreign investors want to come in and look at India as a great place to come in. Here I've got some statistics. Out of the 59 unicorns that are there, nearly 30 are domiciled outside India. I was just talking about it, the 30, which is here. I was just trying to find where it was. So I think we also need, India needs two other areas which need to be, huge amount of investment needs to go in. One is education, one is healthcare. Healthcare right around the world has been demolished during COVID. And I think India needs a lot of investment in both these because, and we need to, the biggest problem that the startups have here today, I don't want to use that word which everybody uses, but I will say the tax regulations are not good. I mean, this angel tax which came in, the finance minister came and said, we are removing it, but we go and talk to the startups, they're still being hounded by it. I mean, the old case is on. So I think somewhere along the line, we have to make regulations easy, where we don't have the promoter or the person wasting his time on regulations and not running his company and his business, and take the litigation and, support the startups so that, they can start doing their business and not bother about regulation. So I think we need to be a little bit more trusting of our people. You have taxes, you have regulations, but don't over-regulate them, because they don't have the might of multinational companies or larger corporates who can put a whole army of people to look at regulations. They run very thinly. They are not supported by, that kind of support team where they can do it, because then their business suffers. And we should make it much more easier for global investors to come and invest in India. I know of one case, I'm not using the name of the company because it's confidential. I mean, they came into India, they've invested, they're possibly the largest investor in this regime into FDI into India, single largest company. And yet when they want to bring some of their money through loans to their group companies, they're not allowed to, because they said you may be round tripping. How can a multinational company be round tripping? They don't have any source of income in India to round trip anything. So I think somewhere along the line, when regulators look at some of these, they should allow these companies, because what you're doing, you're stopping these companies from putting money into India. Now, whether it comes as a loan or as a capital, how does it make a difference? That money is coming in, land is getting bought, huge investments are being made in the country. We should just allow it, because that will help in generating jobs, generating work for people out here, and also creating our own trade and making India a much more, I would say, friendly nation for investors, foreign investors to come in. Because one track record that I've seen is whenever the FDI has gone up, India's growth rate has gone up. I mean, there's a direct link to FDI to growth. And I think that's very important, and we should look at that. We also need further domestic institutional capital, which needs to come in. So a lot of these these domestic investors who are putting into large corporates, I think they should start looking at putting up in the startup community. So it becomes, India should not go and become a digital colony by 2025. And that is a danger, because if a lot of this foreign money starts coming in, we should not become a digital colony and not. So we need to ensure that our unicorns, IPs in India, and the holding of these companies are owned by Indians and owned in this country, because that's where the wealth will get created. So I just thought I will one area which I know may not be really part of this because you're talking of financial services, but I thought it's important to talk about it is the agriculture sector. You know, the agriculture sector, which takes about 43% of the national employment, 43% of people are employed in the agriculture sector. My view is we need to bring much more technology to agriculture. We need to bring a startup community to agriculture. We need to look and say, how can we make the agriculture more, I would say, robust, more modern, and not have too many people on the land, but they can do ancillary activities. So we don't want rural India to come to urban India, but there can be jobs in the rural India which can be provided where they can work. So they need to have access to credits and loans. So only 30% of Indian farmers have access to institutional credit. The rest are getting credit from money lenders. And you know how they behave. That loan never gets ever, even after paying it off, it never gets paid. And we need to improve the supply chain. We need a cold supply chain. We don't have a cold chain. So all the fruits and vegetables which come out from there get spoiled very quickly. And it's a big loss to people who are not already earning enough money. And I would just like to end with a few points now. You know, this COVID has actually changed the mindset of Indians because people have realized that they can die anytime. They have seen very, very close relatives and friends die. And this is so this fact has made people take more risk and try out new things. So this is going to impact the saving in this country. This is a mindset change, very important. This is a big mindset change is coming. We don't know how long we're going to live. So earlier people would keep on saving. Now say, why not we spend it? We don't know where they're going to die tomorrow. Let's spend the money. So this change which has come here will impact the huge savings that India used to have, which was a big plus point of Indians, unlike the Western economies. And I would also leave some few points here with everybody. Entrepreneurship is going to be the new order of the day. Extreme adoption of technology, which is that technology needs to deliver to the promise of human betterment. We have heard about the human element today in your opening remarks. But, you know, the problem with technology is that instead of bringing people together, it is destroyed. I don't know whether technology is destroyed or we have destroyed it, but actually it's created so much of, you know, division, I would say. So it needs to work to better human. And I think it's important that we build or we inculcate ethical behavior into people so that when they use the technology, they're not using it against humans, but for the betterment of humans. And further disruption is going to take place in the payment system. We're going to see some huge disruptions taking place in payment system, and India needs to be on top of it. Bank of the future, I've already spoken about it. So for this, we need very strong infrastructure in the financial services sector. And drones and robots are going to be the order of the day, which will help in the contactless economy. We are talking about contactless economy you're living in, right? China did a lot of their healing in the COVID times through robots and not human interaction with the COVID patients. And I think that's something that we would need to look at. And we are moving from mass production, which was the order of the day, to something called mass customization. And as we move from this big mindset change of mass production to all people on the corporate who have been using large production facilities to mass customization. Today, I want my car the way I want it, not the way you produce it. So we are moving towards that. Global supply chains have been completely disrupted. Here's the chance for India to be part of the global supply chain. We have a golden opportunity of being part of the global supply chain, and we need to actually quickly jump onto this bandwagon with the anti-China feeling across the world. I know it's going to take time before all that happens, but we need to build up our own infrastructure, our own regulations, so that we can now become part of global supply chain and be a nation that will be counted amongst the bigger nations in the world. With that, I will end my talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richardji, for that wonderful speech. And I think now the audience will be very eager to ask questions after his great speech. And we request you all to put your questions in the chat box, which will be taken up after the speech of the second speaker. And Sri Richard Rekhy, being a stubborn, sporting, and a caring person, and you have given a great insight into the investment activities of the past and future needs and asset monetization. And you have spoken about creating the digital infrastructure fund, using fintech in banking sectors, R&D investments, using extensive post office network efficiently, funding and mentoring for startups to create more unicorns, need for investments in education and healthcare sectors, bringing in global investors, bringing in technology and improved supply chain in agriculture sector by taking India to the rural areas, changing from mass production to mass customization. Actually, you have covered almost all the sectors which needs improvement and which we can actually get more out of it. Whatever we have, and we have to get more out of it. From this, I think one quote goes very well with this. Money is always eager and ready to work for anyone who is ready to employ it. So we have to now employ that money so that we will come out and then become a global country actually. So now coming to the next speaker, he will be Sri Ashish Shankar, and he will be introduced by Sri Subhash Bapna. And on to Subhash Bapna ji.
Good evening. Thank you. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing our next speaker, Mr. Ashish Shankar. He is presently MD and CEO of Motilal Oswal Wealth Management Company. He is alumni from Harvard Business School, and he did his business management graduate from University of Bangalore. He has a very good experience of capital market, and he worked in the research work also. He worked in asset management industry for over 66 years, and last 15 years he is in private wealth management across organizations such as Standard Chartered, other banks, investment advisory, research, and other products. He has won several accolades during his stint at this organization. Ashish joined Motilal Oswal in 2012 to build the wealth management platform, advisory, and research. He is an architect of the investment platform and responsible for creating highly acclaimed 4C framework for selecting fund managers, as well as Delphi platform of solutions. He is regular invitee on leading business channels and authored several articles in the leading economy dailies. In his spare time, he is avid readers and love to play TT. He has been a nationally ranked table tennis player and representing state as well as university multiple times. With these words, I introduced Ashish Shankar. Please take your charge.
Thank you, sir. It's indeed an honor. Am I audible, first of all?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, super. So first of all, it's indeed an honor to speak to such an august audience. I know there are invitees who have joined from across the globe. I believe I have about 25 minutes to speak, and then we do Q&A. So, and I was telling Mahavirji that, we are all so passionate about India that we can go on for hours and hours talking about India. But I'll try to sum up our thoughts, and more importantly, how can NRIs participate in the India story? So I was just listening to the earlier speaker, Mr. Rekhy. I think he beautifully outlined what India should be doing. But if I just look at it from an optimistic point of view, in spite of, I think, all the challenges that we still have, I think we have huge participation from NRIs as well as foreign investors into India. So that really encourages me to think that people are braving all these challenges of KYC and still coming to India because obviously there is a lot of opportunity here. And I'm sure our regulators will try to make it easier for investors across the world to participate into India. So I have a very brief slide presentation, and that will probably highlight some of the key thoughts that I have. But whilst I'm opening this presentation, I also wanted to point out that I have three of my colleagues who have joined in, Darshan, Anshul, and Rohit. Rohit leads that team. So they work extensively with NRIs. So I just thought I'll introduce them on this panel so that, in case later on, if anybody has any queries, they can be reached out to. So Anshul, Darshan, you can, probably put on your cameras and say hi to everyone here and Rohit as well. So my presentation is titled Bullish on India. And what I'll try and do is over the next 20-25 minutes, present my thoughts and also give some data points to support my thoughts, after which we could probably do a Q&A. So just to give a little peek into history, right? Over the last 5 years, what has essentially happened is we have tried to clean up the corporate sector. We've tried to clean up the mess in various industries, including banking. If you go back 5 years, the banking sector was saddled with very high NPAs. In fact, the gross NPA numbers was closer to 11-12%. It was actually very similar to the situation at the beginning of this decade. Um,
Ashish ji, you have to
You are not
unmute
audible.
yourself. Ashish ji, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying was, if you just go back 5 years, right, where India was and where we are today, uh, we were saddled with very high NPAs in the banking sector, and that was a function of recognizing all the bad loans very aggressively. The NPA numbers were closer to 10 to 12%, and this was very, very reminiscent of the beginning of this century, around 99, 2000. I mean, we were at a similar juncture. The real estate sector had slowed down. The government introduced the RERA Act across states to regulate this sector. So there has been a transformation in this sector. There has been a lot of consolidation. However, I can see that a lot of the players who are survivors have come out much stronger now. We enacted the central tax bill, the GST, and then, of course, we had the demonetization and many other reforms have been enacted over the last 5 years. Now, as a consequence, what's happened is that the banking NPAs have been aggressively recognized, provisioned for. Some of the public sector banks which needed to be capitalized have got capitalized. The final upshot of whatever has happened is that our banking system has come out much stronger. You also saw the NBFC sector going through a complete catharsis, right? The weaker NBFCs went out of the industry. The existing NBFCs further strengthened their balance sheet and operations. So we've basically come out much stronger over the last 5 years. I would say it has been kind of a catharsis in the financial services sector. However, our financial services sector is now very well capitalized and primed to capture the next phase of growth and lend to support the economy. The real estate sector went through a deep cleansing across states. Again, as I said, there has been a lot of consolidation there. And what you see now is that the stronger players who have survived are actually doing extremely well. And I'll talk about this. The real estate cycle, residential real estate cycle, we believe has actually turned in the country and may actually be the catalyst for future growth. The third point is the GST taxation has basically nudged the economy in the direction of formalization. So what you can see is that the unorganized to organized transformation is happened at a much faster pace than what we had anticipated. And of course, the pandemic has further accelerated the pace. I do believe that as a country, when we move from a $3 trillion economy to $5 trillion, and I'm sure we'll eventually head to becoming a $10 trillion economy, formalization is not bad. It's very good. Our companies need to be much stronger because we are beginning to compete with the best in the world. A lot of our manufacturing sectors have attained global competitiveness. We have excellence in exports, and many more sectors will follow suit. So what we've seen is that we are emerging much stronger after the last 5 years of catharsis. Corporates have just one moment. Yeah, I'm sorry. So corporates have also deleveraged. If you see the overall gearing ratios for corporates have come off. And again, the balance sheets of most companies listed as well as unlisted are primed for growth. The other thing that has happened is government finances are much more robust. In fact, this year we will collect 4 trillion more than what was expected at the beginning of the year. The central tax collections have exceeded government expectations. So whatever is the shortfall from the disinvestment of LIC and BPCL will more than be made up by tax collections. So this gives the government also a lot of muscle to spend on capital expenditure. So I do believe that we are at a stage. If you look at this wheel, generally economies globally are very cyclical, and India has probably gone through the worst of its cycle over the last 5 years, and we are now in a rising phase. And I do believe that the next 5 to 6 years look very promising. So that probably sets the tone of my thought process. If you see the points that I mentioned, first was housing. We do believe that housing, the cycle has bottomed out. Volumes are growing. In fact, last quarter, the residential volumes were at an all-time high, and this is basically supported by all-time low affordability. So if I have to look at the last time when affordability was so good, it was basically in the year 2002. And this is a function of two things. One, prices having been stagnant for 4 or 5 years. Second, interest rates having fallen. And the third point, which I will talk about later, is employment generation, especially in the services sector, is looking very good, especially the IT and the financial services sector. I mean, there has been record hiring in the IT sector this year, and the next three years also look very promising. Asset quality I spoke about. Now, the consequence of whatever I've spoken about is basically that corporate profitability is already improving and set to improve. So ROEs had actually bottomed out a couple of years back. I mean, ROE for the corporate sector in India was at single digit. Now, banks itself, I mean, I'll give you an example. So ICICI Bank and SBI put together, right? 2 years back, they were declaring losses because they were provisioning for the bad loans. This year, these two banks combined will do $10 billion of profit, right? That's the kind of turnaround that we are seeing in the banking sector. And you can see this across multiple sectors where profitability is going up and ROEs are going up. Interest rates is another catalyst. I mean, our policy rates are at 4%. They are one of the lowest that I have seen in the last 2 decades. Of course, our expectation is that rates will rise this year, possibly by 50 basis points or 0.5%. However, I don't think that is likely to cause any shock to the corporate system. Reason being, like I said, most corporates have actually delivered. And typically when ROEs go up, corporates are not that worried about interest rates because your operations have become profitable and you're more than happy to borrow even at a slightly higher cost to fund your operations. Corporate capex. So capex, there are three types of capex that happens. One is the government capex. As I said, government collections, tax collections, and revenues are looking very robust. I do believe that the government capex will be very strong next year. Second, household capex. Household capex essentially is residential real estate. That sector is looking very strong. The third part is corporate private capex. I do believe that corporate private capex we are already seeing green shoots. So sectors like metals, sectors like mining, sectors like manufacturing, we are already seeing capacity announcements. I do believe that maybe 6 to 9 months down the line, you will see a more robust corporate capex cycle emerging. And as I said, the financial sector is primed to lend and support this growth. Again, looking at India relative to the world, I think we will set the pace for the rest of the globe. India should emerging as the fastest growing economy in 2022. We're looking at nominal GDP growth of closer to 12-13%. Real GDP growth probably will be closer to 6-7%. Of course, inflation is a bit tad higher than what we expect, but that's the case across the world. Yeah, so this is what I mentioned on inflation. So as a result, I do believe that rates may possibly rise by about 0.5%. but nowhere close to any alarming level. This is what I was talking about, that as a result, India has attracted better flows than all the peer group countries. And I do believe we'll continue to attract flows. And I mean, today I'm addressing a very august audience, and I'm just hoping that you continue to look at India and support India in terms of capital flows, and obviously opportunity size is very large. So these are some of the data points that I mentioned. So if you see corporate profit as a percentage of the GDP at bottom to about 2%, right? Corporate profits divided by the GDP, which is the total output of the country. It is already risen to closer to 4%. We do believe, so this was the last cycle. If you see the last growth cycle in India, corporate profit to GDP went all the way up to 5.5%, right? And I do believe we are all set to replicate a similar kind of a growth trajectory. So if we go to 5% of the GDP, the number can be quite substantial. I mean, we are a $3 trillion economy. And if you take 5%, you're basically talking about a $15-20 billion corporate profit. ROEs have started inching up as a result. And even banks, like I mentioned, right, you had reached 11% gross NPA have been slowly receding, and so have corporates deleveraged. CapEx, I think we spoke about. So this is what I mentioned on real estate. So if you see the affordability for residential real estate today in India, right, it is the cheapest or the best. Affordability is the best after the year 2003-4, right? And if you look at absorption is also started moving up. Essentially, the inventory is dropping and sales are moving up. Now, real estate is a massive catalyst for the entire economy because it impacts variety of sectors, right, from cement to steel to other housing materials to white goods. And one of the reasons why this is happening, if you look at this is a very interesting data point. So 28% of residential real estate demand, right, is consumed by IT professionals in India, right? And this is a sector which is growing very fast. And you couple this with the startup ecosystem, because most of these digital platforms, they're building captive IT teams, right? And today, if you ask any IT company, the biggest challenge for the CEO or the promoter is hiring and attrition, right? Now, I was just looking at the numbers. The top 4 IT companies alone, right, this year I've already had 150,000 new employees. It was averaging over the last 6-7 years at about 70-80,000. So that's the kind of jump we are seeing, and next year will be even better. Now, interestingly, 11% of residential demand is actually consumed by NRIs, right? So Indians and our family friends who are staying overseas are also do love Indian real estate. So if you combine the IT sector and NRI sector, almost 40% of residential demand is actually in a way linked to the external sector, right? So this is expected to drive robust demand in residential real estate. Even in the commercial real estate, if you see 50% of the demand comes from the IT sector, right? And this is a sector which has suddenly seen a revival in terms of growth, whether it's large, mid, or small-sized IT companies. So what is the opportunity in India, right? So as the Indian economy, right, now you look at the magnitude of growth that we are talking about, right? So India basically took close to about 61 years to become 58 years to become a $1 trillion economy, right? The second trillion got added in 7 years. Now, the third trillion was slower because this was a period, like I said, we are saddled with all kinds of growth challenges in the economy. It took 8 years, but the next trillion will be added in 3 years, and subsequently, the next trillion will again be added in 3 years. So what is happening is the amount of GDP that you took 58 years to add, you will add in the next 3 years. Now, the consequence of this is that when you go to this kind of a number on GDP, you are basically looking at per capita, right? Per capita doubling, right? When the per capita doubles, what happens is the discretionary spend in the economy multiplies exponentially. So when the per capita doubles, basically discretionary spend goes up 10 to 15x, and that's really the big opportunity in India. right? So whether it is healthcare, whether it is insurance, whether it is financial service, overall financial services, or for that matter, white goods, any kind of discretionary consumption is ripe for growth. This is the other thing. I was just hearing the earlier speaker say that we need more domestic capital, right? We've already seen that happening in the listed equity markets, right? Just within 2 years, if you can see this number from 2020 to now, the number of demat accounts has doubled, right? And we are adding 4 million demat accounts every month. So this is basically what is happening is financialization of the Indian market or the Indian investor, right? More and more people are moving their savings to financial assets. So this is already happening in the listed market. And I'm sure with people like us, we are trying to facilitate domestic capital into startups, right? The unfortunate situation is that most of the private equity players who invested in Indian startups or the venture capital funds have not raised capital domestically. And in fact, we are going to a lot of them and saying that the Indian investor is ready. A lot of family offices are already active in the startup sector, and the time is ripe for domestic capital to start flowing in an organized manner. So we are already seeing in the listed space, and I'm very, very confident that we will see this happening in the unlisted space as well, right? Yeah, so this gives you a sense of what kind of activity India has seen in the VC space. I mean, we've already seen in 2021 about $35 billion, right? This is the deal count, more than 1,000 deals. About 42 companies achieved unicorn status, and it's anybody's guess. I mean, the number being touted is anywhere between 100 to 150 over the next 2 years in terms of valuations. But what it does is that it creates huge employment, not just in the organized sector, but in the also in the unorganized sector. So from a market point of view, we do believe, so this was the 2002 to 8 period where India had probably the last big bull run. And we do believe the current scenario resembles this scenario, this period. And the reason is we started this era, right, in a similar fashion where bank NPAs were very high. There were a lot of regulations regulatory bills which had been passed. So there were issues across multiple sectors. Corporates deleveraged, and after that you saw the biggest bull run that we have seen so far. We do believe that the setup is very similar, and we'll have to see how it plays out. So ultimately, we do believe that stock market returns are a function of corporate profitability. So if you look at this period that I was talking about, 2002 to 2008, you saw the earnings of companies almost go up close to 3.5 times, right? You saw the Nifty EPS go up by 25% and the stock market return 37%. Whereas 9 to 20 was a period where there was a lot of consolidation in the economy. The earnings grew only 6%, and you saw the market returns also closer to 5%. Now, this is the period that we are entering, and we do believe that there is a very high possibility from now to the year 25-26, you will see earnings growth of almost 29-30%. So now it's anybody's guess what kind of number the stock market will deliver. Generally, it's a number very close to the earnings growth number. So these are some of the data points that I mentioned about corporate profit to GDP. Now, in terms of how do you access the India market, because Mahavirji told me to speak a little bit about this. As a platform, we give access to clients through direct equities. NRIs, a lot of NRIs have accounts who they come and buy direct stocks, and we're happy to guide them. There are other solutions like PMS, AIFs, and mutual funds. We also run a very successful private equity fund. I mean, our first fund, which we exited last year, it was of 2007-10 vintage. It gave a dollar IRR of after everything net. I'm talking about net to the investor. We gave a dollar IRR of about 15-16%. We also run real estate funds where we are generating rupee IRRs of closer to 17-18%. So these are different ways in which NRIs can participate in the India growth story. I do believe that at the end of the day, India is a growth market, and hence one must look at participating in companies through equity to get the maximum benefit. So I think, Mahavirji, 25 minutes are up, so let me stop here. I have broadly shared some of the high-level thoughts. but we'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Ashish ji. Being a hardworking person and a sportive person, you spoke on the topic of bullish of India. And you told about how the vicious circle has to become a virtuous circle and telling how India is emerging stronger in these few years due to various reforms and in future how it will be. And it is truly very informative because you explained the growth with the statistical presentations to make the points clear. So thank you for that. And you have
Thank
also
you,
told
Chitraji.
about the opportunities for India to rise higher in the global market. And surely people will be having a lot of questions. So please do put your questions on the chat box. And Darshan, Anshul, and Rohit, please, thanks for joining us. And here we go with the question and answer session. And Dr. Mahavir Choplat will moderate the session for us. So on to you, Dr. Mahavir.
Ashish ji, you can remove the charts so that we all can get back to normal view. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra ma'am, for giving me the opportunity to pile up the questions. Though the both sessions of Rekhy sir and Ashish sir were so informative and so exact, but still we have from the world across globe many
Voice is not clear, Ji.
No, I think he's having a little bit of a signal issue. We may just give it less than a minute, 30, 40 seconds so that that should refresh.
So, Rekhy,
Mahaviji, I suggest you switch off your video so that at least your audio becomes a little clearer. There seems to be some connectivity issue.
There are questions in the chat box. Do you want me to answer them? I can see the chat box. There is a question posted by Mr. Mohit Agarwal.
Hello.
Yeah, I think he's got also a few questions on WhatsApp, etc. So he's been consolidating it.
Sure.
We'll just see 30 seconds. If Mahavirji is not able to come back live, then we can do read out the questions from the chat.
Is it
box.
okay now? So Ashish ji, my question.
Yeah, perfect. Please go ahead, Mahavirji. Please go ahead.
My first question from is, what are the best investment option for NRI in infrastructure fund? Is it mutual fund or there is some other mode whom the NRIs can invest in India?
Right. So, look, as I mentioned, right, the real opportunity for NRIs to participate in India growth is through investing in companies, right? Now, you have a set of companies across the unlisted space and in the listed space, right? So in the listed space, we have funds which are run out of Mauritius, which is how all the foreign investors and NRIs access the Indian markets. It is not just Motilal Oswal products. We work with other partners as well, right? So you can access it through the Mauritius route. Domestically, there are 3-4 structures. There is mutual funds, there are alternative investment funds, and there is a portfolio management vehicle as well, right? So that's the listed space. In the and of course, you can open a demat account and trading account directly, and we can help you buy stocks. The other way to access the India growth story is through the private equity route. So we do have private equity. We have a very successfully run private equity fund. We work with other partners as well, like we work with Bearings, and we work with certain venture capital partners as well who are investing in startups. So you can invest through funds. There are times when we also bring direct opportunities to our NRI clients where you can directly buy into certain digital companies. So these are some of the ways to participate. I do believe that India offers a wide variety of opportunity. So, I wouldn't say that it is wise to restrict oneself only to the infrastructure sector. But if somebody specifically wants exposure to the infrastructure sector, then yes, there are funds which can give you exposure in that sector.
Thank you, Ashish ji, for giving the perfect reply. Hope this satisfies the query. Now, my another question is from Adelaide. Mr. Chirag ji has asked me from Australia that can an NRI, how can I use the NRI account for trading in Indian stock market? Is there any way out? Please explain.
Yeah, so it's I mean, it's not very difficult. I mean, you can open a trading account and a demat account. And in fact, I have my colleagues on the call, Rohit, Anshul, and I had actually put up a slide with their contact details. I'll probably send it to you, Mahavir ji. You can circulate it to everyone. It's pretty simple. You can open a trading account and, we normally assign an advisor to work with you. We have coverage over 400 listed companies in India, and we regularly publish reports on this. So there are a lot of NRI investors that we work with to help them build their portfolios here.
Okay, thank you. Then my next question is, what are the best investment options for NRIs? Though you had explained in detail in the slide, matlab, but is there any NPS, mutual funds, real estate funds, PPF, equity investment, ULIP, child plans, etc.? There are various options available. So the next question is, what is the best option with the minimum risk and the best returns as of now?
Right. See, when you're investing in equities, you have to, take a certain amount of risk in your stride, because at the end of the day, you're investing in companies, and the profits of companies are not linear. They are cyclical, right? They are volatile. So as a result, the stock prices are also volatile. So if you're coming into India and wanting to participate in the growth through either listed companies or unlisted, you can do it through mutual funds. You can do it through our PMS vehicle out of Mauritius, or there are alternative funds. Even there are managers who are setting up funds out of the Gujarat Gift City, right? So NRIs can come through that route as well. So you have to look at it from a 3 to 5 year perspective. If you're coming in to participate in Indian equity. So you have listed equities, you have unlisted. There are private equity funds which collect foreign capital, NRI capital, startup funds, and you have. We run a successful real estate fund where the endeavor is to deliver 18-19%. It's a debt product. It's a debt product where we give debt capital to developers, and so far the track record has been to our satisfaction. I mean, the first fund which we launched in 2013 is fully exiting this year with a IRR of close to 18-20%. And our domestic, our fund which NRIs participate in, last 10 years, the return has been closer to 22%. These are rupee returns. Of course, in dollar, you can take away 4%. So about 17-18% dollar return.
There is one more question from a women entrepreneur. What mistakes do NRI make while investments? So,
yeah. So I think, look,
yeah,
please, Mahavir, go ahead.
Yeah, what mistakes?
What mistakes do NRIs make? Right.
NRI make while investment? Yeah, they are not generally. Yeah. And what are the solutions available for income?
Yeah. So I think NRIs, or I think domestic investors, I think the mistakes are more often behavioral, right? So what happens is that when you're investing in stock markets, right, you've got to give your investments time. You have to give it minimum 3 to 5 years, or even more for that matter. Often we've seen people tend to take out money at the worst point in time when markets are down. But obviously, at that point in time, there is a lot of negativity about the Indian economy, about stock markets. I mean, let's take the example of April 2020, right? When the pandemic struck the globe. Markets across the globe corrected. India also corrected 40%, right? And there was a lot of negativity, pessimism on economies, on businesses, right? However, what our experience has been over the last 20-25 years is that these are actually great points in time to invest in equities. So first is, I think a lot of the mistakes are behavioral. So you have to come in with a 5 year view, and you have to expect volatility, right? A 10% dip is very common actually. It happens every year in stock markets, right? Once in 3 years, your markets dip 20-30%, right? So if you're coming in with a 5 to 7 year view, I think that then you tend to solve a lot of the mistakes, right? Often the mistakes are behavioral. I mean, people tend to come in for short periods of time. People tend to withdraw money at the wrong time. So I always keep telling people that time in the market is more difficult than more important than timing it.
Okay, thank you, Ashish ji. My next question is from Rekhy ji just mentioned about there is a lot of opportunity in the infrastructure fund. So what are the options available for NRIs to invest in infrastructure funds?
Infrastructure, I mean, there are private equity Cat 1 AIFs which are investing into infrastructure companies, right? There are domestic managers. So we do work with a few of them, right? So that's one way. Other than that, I mean, there are even listed funds which are dedicated to investing in infrastructure companies, right? So both these options are available. In a sense, the real estate is a form of infrastructure. So we have a real estate fund as well. So these are few of the methods by which. But like I said, the opportunity size is much larger, Mahavirji.
My
So
next question is to Richard, sir. Do you think Fema regulations are outdated and do not support the current business scenario? What suggestions you would like to give to regulators?
If you look at it, I think we moved from FERA to FEMA, which was a good move when it happened. But like with all regulations, they need to keep pace with the economy. And the current economy in which we live in, I think FEMA is definitely outdated, and we need to relook at it to see two things. One, you need to ensure that you keep the capital clean and you ensure that all the regulations are followed, but you don't need to over-regulate. And the way currently we are operating is the person is guilty before proven innocent. So I think that mindset needs to change, and we have to come from we need to build laws and regulations which says that the person is honest unless proved dishonest. I think if we move with that mindset, I think all laws will change considerably, including your Companies Act and a lot of these. I mean, every regulation you see is it's against the honest person, if you ask me. Because the only person who gets hit is the honest person and not the person who actually breaks the rule. Because who breaks the rule knows how to break it and he continues to break it. So I think, and we have not been able to do much with the FEMA regulation, actually, if you ask me, where people have misused it or done it. So I think it's not about coming with one change. It's a whole mindset change which needs to be done on the entire regulatory environment. We need to get rid of some of the archaic laws that we have. Some of the FERA regulations are still applicable, let me tell you, and they are still getting implemented wherever whenever it suits the governments. And I think we need to move away from that and move to more modern. I mean, we took the Companies Act from UK, okay, and if you look at the Companies Act in UK today and you look at the Companies Act in India, it just tells the whole story. I mean, we never moved on; they moved on. And so I think when we revise the Companies Act, we should have come with made it more I would say easy for companies to do business in India. So I think it's about a mindset change more than just regulations. And I think this will come when you have a consultative process between industry and government and the regulators, and all points of views are taken. And if you refuse to take the points of view of industry, this is what you end up getting. I think you're on mute. Mahaviji, you're on mute.
Mahaviji, you're on mute.
My next question to Richard, sir. Ashish ji has just mentioned in his presentation that 3 times growth has been done in technology sector. So do you think the employment will be generated to this?
Yeah, the employment problem is very large. He's raised a very good point. The number of people that are getting hired shows the growth in the technology center. And I was looking at somewhere, Saudi Arabia being one of the largest exporters of oil, and you look at what our IT exports, trumps their entire export of oil. So it clearly shows, sometimes we beat ourselves up so badly, we as Indians. But our technology sector has definitely shown a lot of exports, and with the new hiring that is taking place, um, uh, though if you ask me, it's going against the grain. If you look at it, even in the technology sector, a lot of automation is taking place, a lot of things are happening, but still there is a growth of people that clearly shows our spread is getting higher. But this is one sector only. We need growth coming in the large, manufacturing actually does a lot of employment. Your hospitality, retail, they do a lot of employment. Actually, I did a study actually a long back for CII where we found that this construction sector actually is one of the biggest employers. And I think once the real estate sector starts getting back to its this thing, I think we will see a lot more employment actually at that lower level. See, there are different levels which need to be taken. But I think the problem is larger. It's just not about employment. I think we are going to move from a mainstream employment market to a gig economy, where it is going to be about skills. It's going to be about people. People need to be skilled. It's not about education anymore. If you have skills, you will have a job. When you take our own profession, our own chartered accountancy, a lot of people who may be doing their own practice and all that, if you're not an expert in area, nobody's going to touch you. The day of the generalist is over. So I think for anybody who's on this thing and is listening, I think the employment challenge is beyond just education, beyond just job creation. It's also the skills which are going to come in. The way IT is getting in, anything that can be replicated, IT is taking over, right? So you can automate, you get this thing to do it. But if you have skills which will help you get jobs, and I think that's where people will be able to sell their skills to different companies. So uh, individuals will become consultants in their own right, means 2 hours to this company, 5 hours to that company. Not going to happen now. It'll take 8 to 10 years, but that's where the economy is moving towards, a gig economy. That will become mainstream in my view.
Thank you, Ashish, for the apt answer. Sorry, Richard. Bye. Now the next question to Richard sir is: we have seen that most venture capitalist funds are foreign based. What advice you would give to domestic venture capitalists so that they can become bigger?
See, I don't know. Ashish raised a point that a lot of domestic money is actually flowing into the Indian capital markets. If some of that can be channelized into the startup community, and also it requires a lot of trust and confidence in it. And I think we need to. You see, the biggest challenge in Indian startups. Let me tell you what the biggest challenge is: corporate governance. The youngsters, the challenge they have is because they look at growth, and all these big investors who come in, even you take the big funds who have come and put money in there, they're not interested in corporate governance. They're more interested in saying what return they can get, right? So if we get our corporate governance right, and we can see all the companies which actually got their corporate governance right on the stock market are the biggest beneficiaries, right? They got a lot of money, a lot of big investors, institutional investors, a lot of money coming there. I think in the startup community, if we improve the general level of corporate governance, and the promoters who are very youngsters, actually, they are all people who are pretty young they don't have that experience. I think they need some experienced people sitting on their boards or as advisors to them, telling them how you put governance in place and you actually respect it. Because it's nice to be listed on the stock market, right? But what do you do the second day after listing? How are you going to give back the returns? So you're giving returns to one set of investors. How are you going to give returns to the next set of investors who have come now and invested in your company? It's a long discussion, actually, this topic. But I think domestic people will come in, my view, Ashish can add to it, will come in if they find that their money that they're putting in is safe. Safe, there is a risk to every capital you put in if you're going to put in. But at least they know that it's not getting misused or wrongly put. But we need it, actually. We need a lot of domestic capital coming in. If countries like US, China have got 60% of the funding coming, why is India got 90% coming from out into these large startups? So I think we need more domestic money coming in here.
Thank you, Richard sir. My next question is to Ashish sir. As far as NRI investing in Indian stocks, the profit or the investment cannot be retracted to their foreign accounts. The NRI has to come down to India to withdraw. This seems to be a problem faced by the most of NRIs. What is the ideal solution to tackle this issue?
So actually, Mahavirji, this should not be a challenge, to be very honest. You can repatriate NR. See, there are two types of accounts that are open in India, right? There is NRE and NRO. NRO is where the domestic returns go in. Now, even there, you can repatriate up to $1 million fully tax paid once you show a certificate. Okay. The NRE account is freely repatriable. So maybe what I can do is and also it depends, see, taxation is also a function of which country the capital is originating from. It's a little more complex. There is a DTA agreement with different countries that India has, right? So I think this is something that we can definitely address. So once you circulate the details of my colleagues, they can help him out because it's a very individualized if I may say solution. There's no one hat that fits all. And just to add to the earlier point that Mr. Rekhy was making, like I said, see, India has always had a traditionally very high savings rate, right? So I'm completely in agreement that we need more domestic capital into startups. Okay, so we're already seeing that happening in the capital markets. As I showed that slide, you've almost doubled the number of demat accounts, right? So slowly people are preferring financial assets. However, the startup journey for Indians has just started. So there are a few funds who've started accepting domestic capital. Now, I'm sure this will gather steam over a period of time. See, also it's a function of maturity of the Indian investor, ability to understand what startup investing is all about, right? I mean, these are all companies who make losses for many years. So the Indian capital markets is hopefully matured with few large listed companies now. But this ecosystem, I mean, I think Indians have not participated at all actually. But slowly we are beginning to see large Indian family offices launching their own funds, putting in money with some of these venture capital funds. So I think it will gather momentum, but it'll take time.
My last question to Ashish sir is what is the minimum amount of investment for private equity in India if NRI wants to invest?
Yeah, so typically these funds accept anything upwards of $500,000. Because typically what happens, Mahavirji, in these funds is that all the money does not get drawn down on day one. So let's say if you commit $500,000, 10% gets drawn down on day one. And the remaining 90 gets drawn up over 3 to 5 years, right? So it is gradually drawn down and the exits also happen accordingly. So anything upwards of $500,000 is I mean, a reasonable amount of capital to access these products.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard sir and Ashish sir, for your valuable suggestions and suitable answers to all the queries. Though we have many left, but still we'll ask them to connect you independently over that since the time is pretty shortfall. So I'll hand over the.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll send you my colleagues' details, Rohit, Anshul, and Darshan. And if anybody has any further query, they can reach out to them. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Mahavirji. But anyway, the question answer session will continue after a formal closure. And may I now request, because there is a lot of interest in our group, to know Richard's thought about this group and how does he sees this group and his experience today, and what advice he would like to give us to make this group more successful. Richard ji, can you just give your views? Thank you so much.
I think you put me on the spot. So I think number one, when you get a lot of people who have got a common purpose and a common cause, I think half the battle is won out there. So if the common cause is doing something good for this country, I think what we need to understand is what are the challenges facing us today as a country, as a nation. And then we prioritize it and say which are the top 3 or top 4 challenges or top 5 challenges. And then we can make small subgroups and create group leaders. They can all work on it. And then as a group, you come together and then come with ideas and solutions, which one can then, debate in the larger platform like this. So when you, so first we should understand, okay, these are the top 10 challenges. Out of this, we prioritize only say 3, 4, whatever. I mean, it all depends how much time each one has also, right? We're all everybody's got their own busy schedules and they're doing their own work. Then what we can do is form subgroups out of whatever the chosen topics are of people who have got interest and create a group leader. And then that group leader can work with this group for some amount of time and then come back to the larger group with their suggestions, which can be debated here, like in this forum which you're doing. I would say don't try and compress too much in too many things in one. Might as well go deep into one area, fix it. Because otherwise you'll be having breadth, you'll not give any great suggestions to the country, and we'll be where we are. We need to move forward, and we have to move forward. We need some good ideas, good suggestions, which are practical, which are implementable, and which can then be taken to the right forum at the government and debated with them, and then they can decide whether they would like to take. So I've seen the groups, when you make subgroups and leaders, it works well, and then you can debate it in the larger forum like this platform which you have now.
Thank you, Richard ji. So from small, you have to go to big. So that is the policy that we have to take. Yes.
And we all need to think big for the country. See, we have to go beyond our personal agendas. We have to go beyond what we want to achieve. I think we have to see what is good for the country. I think if that is at the back of our mind, we'll achieve a lot.
Yes. Thank you, Ji. Dear friends, I hope you all had a great session with a lot of information from Sri Richard, Rekhy ji and Ashish Shankar ji. Thanks, Dr. Mahavir ji, for moderating the Q&A session and the speakers for giving answers to clarify the audience questions. Now it is time for our speakers to make this session wonderful. May I now invite Sri Chirag Trivedi from Australia to give the vote of thanks. On to Chirag ji.
Thank you, Chitraji. Namaste, everyone. It's a great pleasure to extend my vote of thanks on behalf of financial professionals for nation, as well as on behalf of Pride of Bharat. So this fantastic event started with Raviji's insight. Raviji discussed about the concept of Pride of Bharat, the activities we does, as well as Raviji gave some good advice to be enthusiastic, be hardworking, be honest, and be ethical. And special advice from Raviji to youth is that no rest in 20s, and that's the best I like. So thank you, Raviji. You are the power engine for entire concept of Pride of Bharat, and we would like to keep getting your advices and margdarshan all the time. Then we move to Richard sir's speech. Richard sir, your speech was great, and I never read the content you provided anywhere on Google or nowhere in media. So all the information was really unique and class of information. So you, sir, started with discussing about the global vision of Indian economy. Then you discuss about the devastating effect of COVID. You then move to infrastructure funding and how we can generate for the country and the benefit of infrastructure. You focus on the financial innovation. From there, you move to how to reduce the capital deficit for the country. And ultimately, you come down to the agriculture sector as well. So it was a great speech, and sir, we highly appreciate your time and the guidance you gave us. Also, some of the last advice to work out the groups was outstanding. So thank you very much, sir, and we would like to have you again and again.
Thank you.
We move to Ashish Shankar ji. Ashish ji discussed about the major reforms done in country in last 5 years and what will be the effect the country is going to get in next 5 years. Ashish ji also discussed about the emerging sectors in next 5 years. Ashish ji also compare the Indian economy relating to the world, as well as the opportunities in coming 10 years to 2030. And lastly, Ashish discuss about how non-resident Indian can access and invest into the Indian stock exchange. So Ashish ji, thank you very much for great information. And I'm sure that many people from NRI community will approach your team and they will start investing into many options into the Indian capital market. Then the team, our team of Pride of Bharat, who is working for this event. And a special thanks to Narendranji. Narendranji is a backbone and Bahubali. He is, we call him Bahubali, and his contribution is great. His guidance is great. Then Subhashji, Kodadad Morindanji, and MBG, you are the great mentors. Your experience is helping us to grow and getting better all the time. So thank you very much for being with us. And all the team members, including Anuragji, Kartikji, Chitraji, your role was fantastic, and we would like to have you every time. And lastly, all the participants, all the guests from 14 countries, we highly appreciate. Thank you very much for your time. And we are planning to have similar event once a month. So I will encourage to be in touch, and please give us any suggestions, any topic if you want to listen. We will try to get the best speaker. And we highly appreciate your time today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just got one interesting WhatsApp feedback. I thought it will be very interesting. Somebody said that this is outside India. He said, first time I'm hearing somebody from the big four speaking from the heart. So,
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate. Please thank him, whoever he is.
Narendraji, it means in another 10 years' time, we'll have a big five with an Indian in it.
Yes. No, that the Prime Minister has already announced that he wants the next, big consulting firm out of India. So, yeah.
I thought that was very very nice observation. मनस से बात किया बिग फाइव का कोई सीनियर आदमी फर्स्ट टाइम ऐसा करके सब बुद्धि से बात करते हैं. ये मनस से बात किया is I think is a very nice comment.
Okay, thank you, Chiragji and Narenji. And now may I invite Miss Yasmin Mohammed from Maldives to sing the Universal Peace Song by Rabindranath Tagore to throw away our fear and work for India's progress in the right direction. So on to you, Yasmin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yashmi, and I live in the Maldives. Today, I'm here to sing a song, and it's called Where the Mind is Without Fear. Where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high. Where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high. Where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where the striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert's end of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought
Dinesh,
and
एक मिनट.
into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake into that heaven of freedom. Oh, Father, let my country awake into that heaven of freedom. Oh, Father, let this world awake. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ashmi, for that wonderful rendering.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Chitraji,
So-
what I liked her was, she said, into that freedom, oh Father, let my country awake, let the world awake.
Yes.
So she has combined both the country and the global.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Ji. And formally now the session is concluded. And question answer session, anyway, we can just proceed, and the informal discussion also can go on. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Ji, Ravi Ji. And it's really a wonderful session. I thank all of you for this wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Chitra ji is from Hong Kong, doctorate in information technology, but she keeps on writing various articles. She has published more than 10 books, both technical as well as cultural. She is a prolific writer and speaker in Tamil literature also.
Thank you for that introduction, sir.
Excellent. And can I add my compliments to the way you summarized everybody's talk? So you were very sincerely listening to everybody, and thank you for that. You very summarized it very well. Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
I
Ji.
think we
Thank you
need
so
your notes. We'll circulate it. We'll need your notes. Fantastic.
Yeah. Sir, I am not a financial profession, but your speech was so simple that I could understand each
Yeah,
and
everybody
every word.
understands.
I don't understand finance. That's why I speak with you.
You're so humble.
I think the recording
Like
is still on.
your association in future also.
Sure.
Your advice will be required.
Look forward to anything to do for this country. I'm very much there always.
आशीष जी आपसे भी मिलना अच्छा लगेगा. Narendran ji,
Anji, Anji.
Ashok Lalwani ji had come.
Yes, I saw him. I messaged him.
Ask him to come back again and say a few words.
Okay, I'll just check.
People who have joined from overseas, just if they can introduce themselves, it will be good. With their name and their country, and in what way we can.
I will just call out maybe Yagna ji. You want to switch on your video and
He's from Doha.
Yeah, quickly introduce yourself and Yagna ji, you're there.
Marimuttu is from Dubai.
Ji, thank you. Namaste, everybody.
So the recording is still on.
Yeah, you can pass the recording, Sundarji. You can stop the recording. This is only an informal.
I'm not a host. You have to do.
Okay. Yeah, Yagna ji, you continue.
Namaste, Ji. This is Yagya Subramanian from Qatar. I'm working with a multinational oil giant from Doha. I'm into the financial and reporting and financial advisory working for. Thank you.
Anurag, you have to switch off the recording. You are the host right now for this program. Girish Lodha ji, thanks for coming, sir. आप कुछ कहेंगे, sir? आप कुछ कहिए, sir?
No, thank you. I have participated for the first time.
Anji, sir.
I would particularly like to thank Mr. Ravi for having informed me of the meeting, and I was glad, and it is a very enlightening session. And my best wishes for the next sessions.
Thank you so much, sir. Avinash Manan ji, आप कुछ बताएंगे? Anything to say? I think this is just an informal session, sir.
गिरीश जी थोड़ा ज्यादा एक्टिव होना पड़ेगा आपको. आपके एडवाइस से हम लोग काम करेंगे.
It will be my pleasure, sir.
Yeah.
I think it's time is up. So काफी लोग निकल चुके हैं. तो Richard ji, I think thanks. Really appreciate your time. So we asked for 90 minutes. You were so generous. You spent a lot more. We'll be in touch, sir. So there are a lot of requests. People wants to talk to you when you're in Dubai next. People wants to meet you, etc., etc. I'll make that connection offline. So really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
They
much.
can find me on LinkedIn, so we can make the connection there. No
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Richard sir, one of your hobbies hiking, and I would like to invite you to Adelaide. We have lots of hiking sites in Adelaide Hill.
Yeah.
I love to.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chirag ji.
Chirag, हमें भी बुलाओ यार.
Sabko, it's an open invitation for all the members of Pride of India.
Pradar ji, you want to say something?
Oh, this was really one of the best sessions, and it was both the speakers were outstanding, and it was really pleasure. I was there listening to every word. It was, and I've made some notes also. But I'm glad that there is a recording which has been taken. I'm going to go through the recording again. There were some very fantastic points, and Raviji, I think. If the government in future is wanting to create a committee for formulating new ideas or new rules or modifying the current rules, I think they should take the help of Mr. Richard for that. I would strongly advise he should be in that committee, because there was a sincere comment, sincerity on how the laws are outstanding. I know when Modi came to power, he started looking at all these laws which were there since 1830s and all that. We need to really revamp. I have so many investors in Europe who would like to go to India, but the thing that scares them is while we are saying that come to India, it's a place to work, and yes, and while lot of red tape has been reduced, but it's still not enough. We need to do more. So Mr. Richard has really hit on a lot of key points in a short speech.
बहुत ही अच्छा. Avinash ji, I saw you switch on your mic. आप कुछ कहना चाहें, sir?
जी, namaskar. Actually, my connection is not very good, but I would like to just request that our, learned finance.
Sir, आपका connection तो कुवैत राजा तक है. आप कहते हो connection is not good, sir.
नहीं, थोड़ा आज I don't know, the internet is not good. So what I request our friends, in the finance sector, to think of, like we have been talking of a NRI bank, to tap, the investments which are on a smaller domain. Like in the Middle East, I have been there for many years. Our labor and junior staff has lot of money to invest, but the problem is they cannot get into these channels what we were talking about. They have to be tapped in a different way, with the surety from government that their money doesn't go anywhere. There have been, I have been talking about this to Raviji and yourself. We discussed this thing should be tapped. It's a very big investment which can come to India. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is an idea I've been, discussing it. We should think of it, and some government agency should take a lead in tapping that domain.
Absolutely.
Raviji, added to Avinash ji comment, there are a lot of NRIs who would like to invest in India, especially on the private equity space. But again, the issue is a knowledge and resource not available. I know a couple of my friends, they were seriously looking for some private equity for investment last year. So getting connected with the right people is really difficult. I think this finance for nations, that groups, we can help
We
on
have
that.
in our group Mahavir Chaplot. He will enable all this. He is very close to Ashish Shankar and this group, which said that they have. So through Mahavir Chaplot, we'll be able to take it up higher. I'll give you Mahavir's number.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think, Raviji, we should let Richard ji leave because हम भी एक बार close कर देते हैं. So it is. Thank you, really, sir.
Thank you
really
very
appreciate.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be having you, Richard. Have a lovely weekend and lovely week ahead.
Same to you also. All the best. Thank you.
Motilal, you made a very nice way of introducing a person. See, he already got a invitation from Adelaide for hiking.
That's true.
And we are now safe. The dogs also will be safe in Bombay.
No, nothing like when you come home after a very tough day at work and you enter the home and you have these dogs welcoming you, you forget all the problems.
Right.
It's Naren used to have a dog. Do you still have it, Naren?
No, I don't have it anymore.
Oh, what happened? He got old, huh? Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Anyway, I'll also take leave. Raviji, this was a lovely, Naren, this was a really good session. And it was lovely seeing everybody again. Chirag, lovely seeing you also. Girish.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye. नमस्कार जी. नमस्कार.
नमस्कार जी. नमस्कार जी. अविनाश जी. नमस्कार.
Chitra ji, thank you very much.
Chitra ji, thank you very much.
Great. Been outstanding.
I think running this program, if WhatsApp had a meter connection texting between me, Chirag, Mahavir, and Chitra ji would have raised increased their billing. ठीक है. Very good. रवि जी ठीक है, हम भी बंद करते हैं. अभी काफी चले गए थे.
ठीक है.
नमस्कार.
Thank you so much.
नमस्कार.
Thank you.
I'll end the program.
Thank you.
And Yasmin ரொம்ப நல்லா பாடினா அப்பா.
அதான் சூப்பரா பாடினா. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் புடவை கட்டணுமா என்னெல்லாம் கேட்டிருந்தா, அப்புறம் கடைசியில புடவை கட்டின அழகா வந்து பாடி இருக்கா.
பிரமாதம்.
அதான். Yes, 12 years. அதான். Good.
நமக்கு चलो.
Yeah, thank you.
நான் வந்து எல்லாத்தையும் ஸ்டாப் பண்ணிட்டேன்.
Okay.
End the meeting.
அவ்வளவுதான், எல்லாரும் போயாச்சு, வெளியில போயாச்சு. நீங்க போய் எண்ட் பண்ணிடுங்க.